Everybody, video here for you today. Now, I was searching out in the desert here about a week or two ago, and I found some ruins out here. Didn't really look into it right away, but what I found lately is pretty interesting. This is the site I'm talking about, right down here. Now, when I found these ruins, I really didn't know what to think. They didn't appear too large. There appeared to be stuff cut in the nearby hills. That got me thinking a little. Didn't know what period of time this came from. This is out in a pretty rugged area between the Nile River and the Red Sea here. A few days ago, I found out what this site was named. It's called Mons Claudianus. It comes from the Roman time, the 1st century. And as soon as I heard it was a granite quarry, I thought about Baalbek being built or added on to by the Romans in that time period. Let's just take a look and read here. Here are the ruins of Mons Claudianus. This was a Roman quarry run by the army of Rome here. It consisted of a garrison, a quarry site, a civilian and workers' quarters. Granodiorite was mined to the Roman Empire, where it was used as a building material. There was also a special purple stone quarried out here. We'll take a look at that in a second here. This quarry was started in the 1st century, the same time that the Romans started building their temples at Baalbek. But when I saw this pillar laying on the ground here at this site, at Mons Claudianus, I thought that there was definitely a Baalbek connection to it. I thought some of the granite from Baalbek came from Aswan, just like the Egyptian temples, but I guess you learn something new every day. The site was discovered in 1823 by Wilkinson and Burton. It lies north of Luxor between the Egyptian town of Qena on the Nile and Hurghada on the Red Sea, 500 kilometers south of Cairo and 120 kilometers east of the Nile, at an altitude of 700 meters. In the heart of the Red Sea Mountains. Here's a website I will leave below, Stone Select, but it talks about Porphyry, Imperial stone of the Roman Empire, and it was mined at Mons Claudianus and a few other nearby sites. It says porphyry is an indigenous rock similar in composition to granite. Unlike common granites, porphyry is a large, light-colored crystals of quartz or feldspar floating in a red or purple fine-grained matrix of smaller crystals. The word porphyry comes from the Latin word for purple, which was the color of nobility to the Romans. But here are a couple things that are carved out of the stone right here. Looks like a sarcophagus with the pyramid lid on it. I've shown a few of those before. It says in the year 18 AD, a Roman legionnaire, Commoneus, discovered a beautiful purple stone in the eastern desert of Egypt. It was a deep purple color with flecks of large white crystals, and was perfect for carving. This is a long way from Rome, although they are difficult locations. Mons Porphyrites and nearby Mons Claudianus, there was a lighter colored granite that was also quarried, became an important source, the stone for the empire. Because of the transportation required, columns and blocks were roughed out at the quarry to reduce weight. They were then ox carted 150 kilometers along the Via Porphyrites to the Nile at Qena. From there, porphyry was shipped downstream by barge and eventually by ship throughout the Mediterranean. Abandoned by the Romans in the 5th century, Mons Porphyrites is still very remote and difficult to access. And I just had not heard really anything about this site, and I discovered it by accident on Google Earth. But it seems to be a source of stones in the granite columns at Baalbek and also for here at the Pantheon in Rome. It says stone from Mons Porphyrites, and that is a site right nearby, one of a few in the nearby area here. It says stone from there can be found as panels in the Pantheon in Rome, as pillars in Baalbek's Temple of Heliopolis in Lebanon, and in the Hagia Sophia Cathedral in Turkey. That is the site I talked about during my shroud research. But I guess pillars came up to the Hagia Sophia, and they were taken from the Temple of Baalbek. Here's a video made in 2017 of an excursion out to Mons Claudianus. Thought this was pretty interesting. They show the column out here. Some more ruins. I will leave the link below. Here are some Roman inscriptions at Mons Porphyrites, right nearby Mons Claudianus. Here is some pre-dynastic rock art, and we recognize the posture here of the pharaohs and their temples. This is the posture of Orion here. Here's the general location of the site, out in the middle of nowhere. In the distance to the Nile Valley is about 65 miles. I've read a few conflicting reports of how far that was. But I guess it's slightly downhill, but just imagine taking a 65-foot column through the desert, 65 miles, just to get to the river here. I guess a true measurement for this pillar is just a hair under 18 meters long, about 60 feet long. But that is on Wikipedia's list of longest stones that we have for construction in the world. Here's some writing on a fragment of pottery, and I guess the workers sent some of their money they earned back to their wives who were living near the Nile Valley. Here's a website that talks about traveling to this place, and I know I read a little earlier that the Great Pyramid and places like Luxor got opened up for tourism again today, so that's good news. Here's a look at some of the ruins out here. I guess the question would be, did the Egyptians know about this site before the Romans? Well, it seems the Egyptians got most of their granite from Aswan, but I wouldn't rule it out that they knew about this site. I know a lot of kings and pharaohs made trips out into these mountains on their way to the Red Sea. Here's a look, some of the ruins out here. I just thought this was interesting. One find here on Google Earth. And that leads you all the way up to Lebanon and the Temple of Baalbek. I'll leave some links below, but it seems spectrum analysis was done, and it kind of proved that some of these columns at Baalbek came from right in this area here. We talk about moving large granite stones from Aswan up the river to places like Giza. Well, moving large granite stones through the desert 65 miles before you even get to the Nile, that's a pretty impressive feat. These guys were earning their money back about 2,000 years ago. That is a Roman quarry coming from the middle of the Egyptian desert. Not sure if the Egyptians were quarrying out here, but it does not appear that way. 2,000 years ago, and then used for about 3 or 4 centuries. That is a pretty cool story. Some of those stones ended up in Rome. Some of them ended up in Baalbek, the Hagia Sophia in Constantinople. That is a pretty cool story. Never know what you're going to find. Hope you thought that was interesting. You all have a very safe day.